Hi, I'm Ralph Preston, and welcome to another Stroke Buddies Recovery and Science Zoom meeting. We do this every Tuesday, and we try and bring you useful information for your recovery. And today, we've got Dr. Jennifaye Brown, and we're going to have a little talk on women and stroke. This is something that's been on my list of to-do things because I don't think that there's enough information out there. And no, I didn't look for an expert. I suppose I could have done that, but I typically bump into people and then put these programs together. And I bumped into Jennifaye on LinkedIn, and my buddy David Dansereau had made a post about women's stroke. And Jennifaye said Dr. Brown said some very intelligent things about women's stroke. And so I wrote to her and invited her, and here we are. So thank you very much I know how busy you are, and so thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your information with us. So.
You are welcome, Ralph, and thank you for members of the Stroke Buddies group for having me. So we all know that May was Stroke Health Awareness Month, and we know that March was Nationally Women's Month, and they're close together. But I think what's really important as we look at disease processes, and because women have different hormones than men, we probably need to look at the outcome of the disease and predictors for the disease differently. And so I just wanted to share some things that there are some common things amongst women that you see in stroke that you don't see in men. Everybody knows the Be Fast model. All right. So you have balance problems, blurry vision, your eyes, the blurry vision of your eyes, your face is drooping, you have weakness in your arm, so one will droop, you're unsteady on your feet, your speech is impacted, and time. They say time is brain, all right? It costs you because that good brain tissue is dying. Well, guess what? Most women wait longer than men to seek help when they have symptoms. And the non-traditional symptoms that women have, they attribute it to something else. So what are some of these non-traditional symptoms? Agitation or sudden behavioral change. Women are just stressed because they have so much on their plate for what they have to be and do and the expectations for other people. They just throw it off as being, oh, I'm short wired today. I've got so much going on. Another thing is that there's this sudden short of breath and difficulty breathing. And you usually see that in women over age of 45. You tend to have just general weakness, not specific weakness on one side, but general weakness. There is nausea and vomiting, and you usually see that in women under the age of 45 who are experiencing a stroke. And then you have pain in the chest or some type of discomfort. And that's usually for women over the age of 45. Now, women get hiccups and they have a migraine, and this headache is sudden, just really sudden. And then there's an aura about them, like there's something going on outside of their body. Usually with brain injury, people have this sense of smell that's not the norm, but they have this migraine headache with aura. You also see these hallucinations, you have seizures, and then there can be a loss of consciousness. But if your stroke progresses, everyone will have a loss of consciousness. Women just tend to have it faster, more so than men. So those were some things that I really wanted to pick out about the signs, symptoms of stroke that's typical in women. Now, so now there are some factors, some stroke risk factors that they have. Women, a lot of women talk about migraines. And then when you're having the migraine with the aura, that's when you know you're having the stroke symptoms. So that's the stroke risk. Taking birth control pills. This is why women have more strokes between the ages of 20 to 44, even though there are more men, all right, but we have strokes more because we're on the birth control pill. And why is it, what is it about these birth controls pills and what they contain? The estrogen that they're using, the synthetic one, is thromboforming, meaning it clots the blood. And that's why you see people with hormone replacement therapy immediately after menopause, they're at the highest risk of stroke because they're getting these synthetic hormones. And they've also found that people are doing gender affirming surgeries. You have to give them these hormones. Their stroke risk are increasing also. Why? There's something about the clotting factor of these synthetic hormones. I used to tell my students this all the time. If you're female, your hormones, the naturally ones made by your ovaries, are neuroprotective. They're cardiovascular protective. They're really good for you. The synthetic ones are not as good. I also wanted to tell you that when you during pregnancy, so that's the third time that you're at a highest risk for stroke. One is the age between 20 and 44 because most women are on birth control medicines. And then right after menopause, all right, when we start taking HRT, the hormone replacement therapy, and the third time is actually during pregnancy and or delivery. Why? Because we may have gestational diabetes and or preeclampsia, and preeclampsia is high blood pressure during pregnancy. So we already know the three things that causes a stroke in the normal population, no matter if you're male, female, young or old. It's having diabetes, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure. And I know plenty of people who are on all three of the medications and still wonder, why are they having the problem of having a stroke? That's because you're taking the medications to help with the symptoms, but it's not fixing the actual root cause of the problem. Okay. And so you find a lot of strokes that happen during pregnancy or postpartum. And I've treated a lot of women post stroke. So that's how I wanted to start this conversation. The symptoms that are different in women and the stroke risk factors that are different. And it just a recapture: chest pain and discomfort, women over 45. Shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, sudden onset, over the age of 45. This nausea and vomiting, less than the age of 45. So now that we've got that out the way, let's look at the big picture. Why is it that women are having more strokes in men when you look at the population? Well, number one, we live longer. And when we live longer, our arteries don't expand and contract like they used to. So they get a little hardened with age. And so if you have a blood pressure problem and the blood can't go anyplace because now our arteries are hardened, women, as we age, tend to have more hemorrhagic strokes. So where there's a weakening in the artery, the blood's going to flush out. A hemorrhagic stroke is worse than an ischemic stroke when you just have a clot here, because we can burst the clot and the blood will flow through. All right. There are two types of PAs, I call them, because everyone thinks there's TPA, but you have two blood circulations in your brain. It's called the anterior circulation and the posterior circulation. And based on the circulation, they will give you a different clock buster. But we always call TPA. That's the most well-known one for the clot buster. So the reason why the hemorrhagic stroke is worse is because the blood comes out of this contained space, and that blood compresses other good brain tissue. And when you compress other good brain tissue, there is a reaction that follows. Water and all of these other things come, causing further compression. Now, remember, that brain tissue wasn't ischemic. It didn't die because of the lack of blood flow. It's being compressed because of this blood flow gushing out of the artery. And then you have the edema and everything. They call the cascading effects of stroke. So now you have compression of the brain shifting. And if you don't call because time is brain, your outcome tends to be worse. That's why you see all these articles is that women have worse outcomes because of stroke. Well, the outcome is worse because of the type of stroke and the damage that that stroke causes. And again, we just live longer. So another thing I wanted to tell you that's really unique in our population, it says, and they've done a lot of research of this in in Canada. Women tend not to go to inpatient rehab and get the stroke rehab services because the insurance company says if you're going to go back home, we'll give you inpatient rehab, but there you have to have someone to care for you and take care of you. And that's one of the discharge outcomes for inpatient rehab, that you're going home. If you're not going home, they're going to send you to a nursing home. And so that leads to a higher level of depression in women because there's no one for them to be cared for or cared by, and they can't go back home alone. So there is a high level of anxiety and depression amongst women post stroke. It's not because you had the stroke brain and your amygdala in the area where your happiness is born out of your hippocampus and all those structures. It's a societal thing. It's a social determinant thing. And so we're living longer. All right. We're outliving all of our peers. And so when it's time to come home with that much impairment from a stroke, you can't take care of yourself. So they don't allow you to go to inpatient rehab. You end up going to a nursing home. And chances are the nursing home is the place where you're going to stay for here on out. And I just had that happen to a sorority sister who's in her 70s, who's single, lived alone, had a home which was not universal design, handicap accessible, and she could not return home. And so I wanted to mention these things that were just important because I don't think people think of it that way. Just think, oh, well, why are women, they must not take care of themselves. Well, we all know that as we age, exercise is good, physical activity is good. And most women are doing that. I was at the senior center today and I only had 4 men in the class, and the rest of the 30-something women were female. All right, they're female, they're women, only 4 males. But here's the issue: we're not exercising at a high enough intensity to release the hormones and the neurotransmitters in our blood that will help expand and contract our arteries. We're not releasing enough hormones for to get rid of the bad stuff that's floating around in our blood that will send it to the muscle and use it for an energy source. So it's a good thing to exercise. But when you exercise, I need you to break a little sweat. I need you to huff and puff. If you're carrying on a regular conversation, you're not working at a high enough intensity to release all the good things that you need for your body. And not only do you need to do that before the stroke, you also need to do that after the stroke. I was just reading an article today that physical therapists will engage in exercise with their clients of low intensity because they're afraid of the cardiac risk. Okay, by the time you've had a stroke, they should have found out what caused the stroke. Were you in AFib? Did you have a blood pressure problem, a diabetes problem, or a cholesterol problem? So after they found that out, giving you your medications, if we can find a target heart rate for you, it's good to work at that target heart rate according to the CDC guidelines. Now, not only should you work at that target heart rate, you shouldn't do it alone because the research shows when you exercise with someone and engage in social engagement, intellectual stimulation, and conversation, that is a great thing. So, two things. We need to exercise at a higher intensity, excuse me, and then you need to exercise with someone. All right. And then the next thing, because I'm going to shift post stroke for just a little bit. When you think of fitness, all right, you got to do what's good for the heart, which will also be good for the brain. And so we need to do some resistance training, all right, and we need to do balance, all right, because when we work on our balance, we are sending information back up to the brain, sensory information. And when the brain gets that sensory information, it wants to output more motor things. So you will move more. All right. And you may have to move differently because of the where the original lesion was for the stroke. Everybody wants to be normal pre-stroke, but you can't always be normal based on the lesion location, the size, and the severity. And when I say severity, the time that you were without oxygen to the brain. So not only do I want you to work at a little higher intensity and break a sweat, I got to make sure you're working on balance, you're working on flexibility, you're working on strengthening. All right. When you work at the high intensity, it's aerobic. All right. Everyone says, well, I've been riding the recumbent bike. I've been on the new step. I'm on the thing that goes like this. I saw that today, but my walking hasn't changed. For neuroplasticity changes in your brain to happen, it has to be task specific. If you want to walk better, you need to train in walking. If you want to ride a bicycle better, you need to train in riding a bicycle. So, the last point I want to leave you with before we get back to what we need for these differences in women is that it has to be task specific. It has to be task specific. So, higher intensity workout in terms of aerobic activity, I need everybody to sweat. I need some resistance training. I need flexibility and I need balance. And then I need you to do these exercises with someone else. Social engagement, intellectual stimulation. And the intellectual stimulation can be how you thread the yarn around the needle. It doesn't have to be pi squared 28754, a calculation in physics and math. It can be anything as long as you're asking the questions, getting the answers, and building upon it. Social engagement. And then whatever you do has to be task specific for you to improve upon that. Okay? So, all that being said, do y'all have any questions for me about the stroke risk factors in women or the stroke symptoms that are different in women?
No, I thought you were pretty clear about them all.
All right. So I want to dig a little deeper into some things about stroke in and of itself. And why is it that women are a target either at a younger age when they're on those pills compared to men, or right past menopause or as we age. So now we're going to look at a social construct of women. All right. Typical family when you put a family together. The wife stayed home and took care of the kids, and the man was the breadwinner. All right. So he had the stress of work and bringing money into the home. The wife just had the stress of managing the home, which was the child rearing. Not that the father wasn't the assistant disciplinarian, but child rearing and things for the home, food, shelter, things like that. With the cost of living, all right, now you have to have two people to work. All right. So now the typical role of the wife, you've added on another role that just the husband did. Okay, so now she's working 40 hours a week, child rearing, home management. That's an added stress. All right. And they have found that when you have that much stress, if you look into your little cell, the cell that makes up everything, at the end of your DNA, I'll just keep it simple, we'll call it DNA, is something called their telomeres. And your telomeres should look like this. They should nice and be all bundled together. And then the more stress you have, your telomeres split. They look frayed. All right. And this contributes to your stroke risk. All right. These telomeres are the caps. It's like the hat on top of your DNA on your chromosome. It's the protective end. And the more you're stressed, it senses that and it frays. This concept of stress is called weathering. All right. And what it does, it ages your cell. So not only are we living longer, but we've aged 30 or 40 years earlier than our normal age of where our lifespan is. Our cells have aged prematurely. And this telomere, where they go like this, they split, and then when they split, they shrivel. That's associated with a stroke risk from chronic stress. All right. It increases your stroke risk. All right. So, when the telomere becomes shortened, it causes the cell not to divide and proliferate and make new cells. So as you age, you're not making new cells. All right. And that's what this biological aging is like. So we have the potential to change this. What are some factors that influence this telomere shortening? Not only stress, but poor diet, all right, the lack of physical activity, exposure to environmental toxins, all right, those things right then and there can impact your telomeres. So let's start at the first one, stress, de-stress. It's okay to say no. If you can't manage, how can you manage your time, you as a person, and the task? We just have to learn how to manage. Yes, we're supposed to do everything, but the everything that you do is going to deteriorate the one thing that's most important, which is you. All right. So stress, we need to manage stress. Diet. All right. I keep hearing this. It's expensive to eat healthy. Okay. Well, it's expensive not to eat healthy because after the podcast, just go to your cupboard and pull out what you would consider your favorite foods and just read the label. How many chemicals are in the label? On the label that you can't even pronounce. So I would encourage people to eat one word food. All right. And then if you did these two things, this would help tremendously in your diet. The one word food that is unbleached. So I no longer eat white rice because it goes through a bleaching process and the chemicals are still on there. All right. I no longer eat white grits Real Grits is made from corn, which is yellow. And I do remember my grandmother to this day, because she had a farm, she would cut the kernels off the corn. They would fall into something and she would, grind it and then it would sift through. And that corn either made cornbread or it made grits. And it's how she prepped it. So now I've gone back to eating polenta because it's yellow. Um, it's not chemically processed. And if you want to cook real rice will take over an hour or two to cook because it has the husk on it. And that husk is what's protective for your blood sugar and causing it not to spike. When you've removed the husk and eat on the inside, which is bleached, then that turns into a sugar that spikes your blood. And so that's why people say carbs are not good for you. Well, carbs are good for you. It's the way the carb is eaten in its original form. So I've totally cut out. So I said unbleached. If we can get rid of things that are bleached in our diet because of the chemical process. The second thing is sugar. Sugar is hidden in our food over 226 ways. It's called so many things. And when it says no sugar added, it has something else that's taken the place of a sugar. So even the stevia that you see, real stevia from the plant is expensive. When you look at the stevia in the bag that you buy, look how much of it is true stevia and how much added product it is. You probably wouldn't take the stevia. All right. So because I have a sweet tooth. Um, and so now I know I got to put an apple in my salad. I've got to eat an orange. I've got to have some type of fruit for to curb my sweet tooth. So right now, last week I had figs, just nothing but the fig. And this week I have dates, nothing but the dates. So I'm eating one date a day to curb this sweet tooth. So I really have cut out sugar. They said the best thing for your heart and your brain if you could give up soda. That would be the number one product if you could just give up soda. And then for everybody else down here in the South, if we could just give up sweet tea, that would be a help in everything. So those two things I've really tried to cut out of my diet. So I'm eating more fresh fruits and vegetables, nothing processed. Um, and so if I want a sandwich, I've got to get a chicken breast with no injections of nothing because they're injecting the chickens now, just fresh chicken and bake it and slice it. And that's how I have to make a sandwich. And because I have sickle cell, my doctor wants me to eat the dark meat of the chicken. So now I'm only getting thighs and chicken legs, and that's how I make a sandwich. And I'm baking my own bread now, which is one seed, whatever it is, flour, nothing added, no enzyme, no nothing, just one. If it has to be unbleached red drum wheat, then I'll buy that. And then I bake my own bread using two other ingredients. I can't add salt anymore because of my blood pressure issue. The yeast, room temperature water, and the flour. And then I add any herbs that I have and I make my own bread. And I don't have a fancy bread maker. I bake it, I do it like my grandmother. She added the water, she kneaded it, put it in a bowl, and it sat there and she covered it up. And then she came back to it, kneaded it, added some flour, and then she baked it in a like a witch's cauldron or something that it was a black iron skillet thing that she would put in the oven. I still bake bread that way to this day. I bake my biscuits that way, and I still have my grandmother's skillets. So anything that sits on a shelf and has an expiration date, it's probably not good for you. And that's why the incidence of colon cancers have gone up. If it can sit on a shelf that long, your body probably cannot break it down and it's sitting in your colon that long. And there's research where your gut is related to your brain health, and they seem to bypass the heart. I don't know how they bypass the heart, but the two are connected. And so what you eat determines your heart health and your brain health. So I always tell people exercise is medicine and food is medicine. Um, and so if you can get fresh fruits and vegetables, you can. Well, organic is expensive. Sometimes I go out to the farm here in Charleston. I get the bruised ones. My grandmother had a farm, and that's why I have an appreciation for bruised fruit, as long as it wasn't rotten. Because we would get a whipping every time we dropped the fruit because that was her livelihood. And so I don't mind getting the bruised fruit because that's what I grew up on. We didn't waste anything. You just cut it off and you still cook it. So fresh fruits and vegetables, nothing processed, giving up sugar and bleached foods. All right. Lack of physical activity. I can tell you a secret. Walking is the best exercise and it's free. And then when you're walking in your house, pick up a soup can, pick up the detergent bottle, and walk with it at your waist, walk with it out here, walk with it above your head. Now that you've had a stroke and you may be weak on one side, walk with something tucked under your arm, all right, and then have something in the other hand. So you're strengthening the weak side, even though you can't do all of this. You have it close to your body, you're holding it, and then you have something in your other hand, and you can walk. I tell people when they're sitting in the chair and the Price is Right comes on, after the commercial comes on, you got to get up from the chair, walk around, sit down, get back up, walk around, and sit down. Just don't walk in a straight line. Turns are so important for balance and fall prevention. So the lack of physical activity. And then the last thing that influences these telomere shortenings is environmental toxins. Every season, change out your filter in your home. You never know what you're breathing in. All right. Use a filter for your water. If you want to boil it, and then that's the water you're going to drink for the day. All right. But consider the air that you're breathing and what you're ingesting in terms of water, let alone the pesticides on the foods. All right. So, wash your fruits and vegetables in baking soda. Let them soak in cold water, but rinse everything off. Rub them with your hands. All right. Consider the environmental toxins. All right. So we just got through talking about this weathering concept and how it impacts women from a social construct, and then four things that we can do that influence telomere shortening. All right. Any questions?
Sorry if I did it
Linda.
like this. Hi, my name is Linda, and I've had multiple strokes. So
Mhm.
I spend most of my time in a wheelchair. My legs, well, there's lots of reasons, but part of it is that they're just not strong. And when I
Mhm.
did try and walk more, I I had a femur fracture, and the
Okay.
doctors didn't discover that. So it was inside, and it took 6.5 months to discover it. So I got so bad, besides the strokes, which were a total of eight, one massive,
Okay.
but total eight, that walking is very difficult for me. I
Okay.
try and use a walker when I can,
Hmm.
but I don't think we dwelt on this a lot, and I'd love if you could bring this in. The fatigue, like I'll try and use my walker. The best I can do is 45 minutes, and then I've just got to lie down
Yes.
because the fatigue is just ever present. But
All
I've
right.
had big strokes, so maybe that's worse.
Great
Very
comment and great
good.
question, Linda.
Thank you.
So in the walking only gets better if you can increase the intensity of the walking. So my question to you is, do you want to walk longer at a slower pace, or would you rather walk um with higher intensity, more steps to get where you're going in less time? And that can be easily trained in your wheelchair. So if someone
Oh.
yeah, I'm getting ready to show you a few things. So you got to move aerobically in your wheelchair. So if you have a rolling pin of some sort, somebody can buy you a plastic noodle or a rolling pin. You don't want it so thick because your knees will be higher than your hips. And all I want you to do is put your feet on bottom of that and just roll back and forth. All right. And you got
Wow,
to roll.
that's great. Do
Yeah,
you
roll
mean
at a,
the noodles like they use in pools or like kids use
you
to
can
play
use
with in
that.
pool? I can
You
get
can
one of
use that.
those.
You can use one of
That's
that.
good. Great.
And your feet may flatten it out. So what you tell somebody to get a PVC piping that's plastic and run it in the center of the noodle so you don't flatten it out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes. All right.
Yeah,
And so
sure.
then you can
Home
just roll
Depot
it.
has those probably. I'm sure
Yes.
Home Depot. Thank
So
you so much.
you put on your favorite music and you just listen to the music and da 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 da. But when the refrain comes on, you get to rolling. You get to rolling. You get to rolling. You get to rolling. All right. And when the other part of the song is on, like they're singing the verse, then you're gonna start moving your arms. And look, if you can't punch both of them, then this is what I want you to do. Hold your hands here and rotate. Because when
A
we
therapist
walk,
showed me that
we're
going
supposed,
like, if you can see going around like this and
yes.
doing like
Uh-huh.
this,
I
because
just
I
want you to do
one
this.
hand just was too weak.
Yes. So do it from the trunk because paired was your cortical spinal tract anterior that goes to your trunk, but you're not using it. And so you know what your brain says? Well, you're not using me. So now I need you to get that moving because when you're on the walker and you're tired, you're just doing this. But I need you to
Right.
rotate.
Right,
I
exactly.
need you to
Oh,
rotate
oh,
because
okay.
if you're going to put one leg in front of the other, the trunk needs to go with that opposite leg. So now you train that in sitting. You train that in sitting.
Wow.
So not only you just train the mobility of it, now I want you to train the strengthening of it because muscle endurance is just as important as muscle strengthening. So now on your chair, be it your wheelchair chair, you take the TheraBand here and you wrap it around this shoulder girdle, take it and wrap it around this shoulder girdle, come to the edge, and guess what? During a TV commercial, they're usually 90 seconds. Jeopardy, 90 seconds. Don't move the arm, just move the trunk.
Wow.
90 seconds. Okay.
That's
And then if you
wonderful.
want to get the arm in there, arm, arm, you can do the arm. But I find that physical therapists give y'all exercises for the arm. Get your arm up. They're not looking at the trunk and the pelvis. If you want to
No, they're
walk
not.
better, you
You're right. You're right.
yes. So you need to get the trunk in because that was spared and that will help you. So you can build your muscle endurance while sitting in the wheelchair. But remember, I told you if you want to do better at walking, you got to stand up and do the walking. So here's after you've done all that sitting, then I want you to stand up, hold on to your walker, shift your weight to the left side, and roll back and forth with the right, standing up. And you can do this fast as you
Oh,
can during the song or during the commercials. So that's how you can train it. So again, what is important to you? Do you rather walk slower, a longer distance, or do you want to walk more efficiently within a certain period of time? If the
but
answer is the latter, do some of the things
oh,
that I just did with you because
okay.
everybody gives you the exercise, kick your leg up and down. One, two. I need you to move it.
But
Linda,
I haven't, does it matter if you're real slow? Because I've been trying to walk for so long. My first stroke was almost exactly 7 years ago. Almost
Mhm.
exactly my very first stroke. And every time I try and walk, I'm very slow. I'm like a snail. But I keep at it. But I'm super slow. Do you just
That
keep at it until you can get faster?
you have to train it fast. That's why you need the rolling things. You have to train it
Okay.
fast. You have
Okay.
to
Thank you.
train. We don't train it fast. Go ahead, Ralph.
Linda, both Home Depot and Lowe's sell PVC pipe pre-cut in 2-foot sections, and you may want to cut.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Okay,
you
thank
put
you.
that inside the noodle. Also, a 4 or 5 foot noodle, when you roll it, the outside edges are going to get real unruly. You might want to take a noodle and cut it down to 2 feet also and put the pipe in it because your feet aren't any wider than that.
Well, it's June. They're selling noodles everywhere.
Yeah.
I'll cut it down. I got the pipe. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, another thing that I see in home health, they always give y'all the foot ergometer and expect y'all to pedal. Okay, walking is not pedaling. All right,
Oh,
and you're
right.
sitting with your knee higher than your hip. What I need you is to take a long stride and come forward a long stride. So that's why I tell people to buy an old kid skate, put your shoe on, and sitting, just move the skate while you're sitting. So back and forth, and sit on the edge of the a chair or whatever you're in and scooting back and forth. And the last thing I tell people to help with their walking in a seated position, sit on a lazy Susan and rotate your pelvis. Because if you want a longer stride, a longer step,
Ah.
you got to get the pelvis forward. And then the last question I have for you, because I know you've been to rehab many times, and I tell all of my clients,
Well,
especially the
not
women,
Medicare kind of limits you now. I mean,
they
Medicare
do.
is like they keep saying we're not paying for it.
Yes. So you can get a tune-up once a year. And if you need
Oh, you
some
can.
language for me to help you with the writing for the tune-up once a year, make sure your physical therapist trains you to walk backwards.
Oh,
Walk backwards.
oh. God, I remember when my kids and grandkids did that, and I thought that was so cool, but they were one, less
Backwards.
than one.
You
Thank you.
gotta walk
I have
backwards.
one other question. Is it a
I'm
big deal if you're over 70? Because I'm 72
uh-huh.
and I've been at this since 65, 7 years. Well, just 7 years now, except for the broken femur. Does 72 make a big difference if you're older? And,
So
there are a
the
lot of older people that get strokes, I know.
right, the paper that I read today, they said, let's find the notes because I just was reading it here. I'm reading it for a course. Um, the slower, comfortable speeds is related to older age, but a faster, comfortable walking speed is linked to higher physical activity levels. We're not training it.
So
We
that's
need
it.
to
You just got to
train.
do it as much as you could handle.
Yes.
As much as, okay.
How many times have y'all gone to the clinic and the therapist said we're gonna take 2 laps around the clinic? Did they time y'all how fast you were going? Did they ask you to do something while you're walking to pick up the speed? That's what's important. So the
Well, the
research
speed
shows
matters.
that no matter what the age is, all right, you can increase the number of steps and the number of minutes in aerobic activity. So they did 20 sessions. So if y'all go for a tune-up and Medicare covers 6 weeks, that's or you can either go 3 times a week or 2 times a week. So 18 sessions. If you went 2 times a week for 6 weeks, that's 12 sessions for your tune-up. They did it by session and the age of the person, and they were able to increase the number of steps and the minutes in aerobic activity by training them. So the things that can help train you is the music that you listen to while you're exercising, because the beats per minute makes you want to move faster. But when I wanted my class today to exercise and we were working on the lengthening of the muscle, I said, come up and slow down. The song's not over yet for this part. When you get at the end, that's it. All right. So it really is about how we train you. I don't think people are walking backwards. I don't think that they're working at a higher intensity. They got to break a little sweat. If you go to therapy and the first thing they do is lay you down flat on the mat to do the exercises, you're past that. You
I
should be
have
doing
one other
something
question.
different.
There's one thing I did just
Hmm.
because I realized if I want to keep up with all the exercise, I've got to do something I like. So I bought a pair of bongos and I
Yeah.
put that on my knees and just do as much as I can. I
Yes.
bought drumsticks because my
Yes.
hand just wouldn't do it right. One side is worse, but they're both bad. I had strokes on both sides, but one side is much worse. So I bought drumsticks and I do the bongos with my drumsticks, but I can easily go like, move my trunk while I do it. But this way
Yes.
I'll keep at it because I'm liking playing with the music, and I'm
Yes.
trying to find things that are fun.
Yes. So, oh, I know I've met the lady, Carly Weinstein and Darcy. I can't remember Darcy's last name or Reisman. I think her last name is Reisman. They did a research study where they, and I made this out of PVC piping. They were sitting and you had to move your hand every time you saw the light come on or you heard a bell. So what they found out, depending on where your stroke lesion was and how severe it was, the good arm would slow down and the arm affected by the stroke would speed up so that they could move together. And so I made a tabletop PVC piping mechanism like that for one of my clients who wanted to have more symmetry in the arm.
Thank you so much. Thank
Yes.
you a lot.
You're welcome. And don't forget your resistance work. Make sure you're lifting something and moving something, even if it's your own body. We always thrust out the chair by throwing our hips forward, but let's scoot out a chair by going side to side and moving each cheek butt forward and backwards and forwards and backwards. When you go to stand up, just take the time and do this and get to the edge and then stand up as opposed to standing up from the back of a chair. Just these little nuanced things that people don't tell you is good for you.
Is it good to try? Because what happens to me is I get tired and then I don't want to like put on music and try and dance. If you can like surround yourself where you can grab onto something, if you need that, because
Yes.
by
So
trying,
again, you start off in increments. Can you do it really well for 30 seconds? And then
I
you do
never
it
could
really
dance really
well,
well.
but you have to move and move
Right,
at
but
that
I do. I
intensity.
move and no one
Right.
sees, so I'm okay.
So if you look at the stroke research, there are four major areas: aerobic, and it says muscle strengthening and endurance. So why do 10 reps of an exercise if by the time you get to the seventh one, it looks sloppy? You only have endurance for 7. You want endurance for 10. That's why I don't increase the weight. I do the exercise biceps in this position, biceps in this position, and then biceps in this position. Notice my arm is getting further and further away from my body.
I can
Seven
see that,
pounds
yeah.
here is easier than 7 pounds here. But 7 pounds here is functional because this is what your arm looks like when you pull back the door and you have to go through it. What is it that you do here with 7 pounds in a barbell weight? You eat here. You don't,
Right,
and
right.
we teach you to do the exercise here, but we don't teach you to do the exercise with the function here.
Can you use light barbells? Like I have threes. That's all I can really handle for a lot of reps.
I
Does that
tell
do
people
anything, or am I wasting my time with three weights, with three
no,
pound
it's
barbells?
you do the weight within the available range that you have. But I'd rather you find something that weighs 3 pounds in your house that's functional to lift.
Okay, thank you so much. You're terrific.
Yes.
Start with soup cans.
Soup
Two
cans,
pans will do it.
take an empty 16-ounce Coca-Cola bottle and fill it up with sand, fill it up with marbles. The heavier it is, maybe fill it up with lentils, then lima beans, marbles, and just make it heavier because you don't grip anything in real life like this for function, but you're gripping a cup and then you have to move it from this surface to this surface, but you don't do this all day long. So I'm trying to train people. If I just wanted to isolate the biceps muscle here, that's fine. But if I want to train the biceps muscle for function, I need the shoulder up like this, and I need to be doing this.
How
Because that's
high,
how you eat.
ideally? I mean, what you're doing now, is that the height we should achieve while we're doing like really high up? We want a high height. Okay,
Yes,
thank you
because
so
that's
much.
how you eat. Yeah, that's how you eat.
But
And then I just make sure that
okay.
people can do this to put their sleeve, because I don't put my sleeve on like this. I put my sleeve on like this. So when I was at exercise class, we did Staying Alive to the
Oh,
music. We
that's
did
great.
Staying
That's
Alive.
great.
And then
That's
we slowed
great.
it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We slowed it down so the muscle could work through the range. I think we did Staying Alive. We cranked up the old-fashioned Sears lawnmower today. I had them cranking up the lawnmower. We did quite
Wow.
a few things today. Functional.
I wish there were clones of you in every state. I wish there were.
Thank you. I see a lot of smiles on the Zoom camera. Does anyone have any questions or comments or more questions about how stroke risk or stroke symptoms impact women?
Yes, I do. I
Okay.
wanted to know about hiccups and stroke.
So the hiccups came, and when I tried to look into this, that was because of the breathing and the air going down the wrong pipe and causing a reaction. And they didn't say much more than that for the hiccups. It's just that when you have women and you ask them, what did you notice anything else different about you when you were having the stroke? And it was the hiccups. It has hiccups listed. And it didn't go into much detail.
But you can sit there doing absolutely nothing and then the hiccup will come.
And the hiccup becomes because there's a disruption in the airflow and it triggers something else. And that could be a cranial nerve involvement. For swallowing, your gag reflex, your vagus nerve goes to your heart. All right. It also goes to your colon. That's why there's nausea and vomiting. So you got to think about the relationship of the cranial nerves and where they go to the body and why these women are having such strange stroke symptoms. So your vagus nerve is a cranial nerve and it goes not only to your heart, to your gut. Your phrenic nerve is with your diaphragm that helps with your breathing.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. And if I find any more added information, I will, but I have about 30 pages worth of notes. And I saw the hiccups, but it didn't go into it deep. What I found was really interesting when they went into these synthetic hormones that people are taking and why it increased stroke risk because of their clotting factor. They cause the blood to clot. And you
Wow.
don't want to throw an embolus. Another interesting note is, and y'all, I know y'all see all these drugs on TV, but women are diagnosed more with atrial fib than men, and we're diagnosed as we age more after menopause. It just goes to show you how important that our hormones are to protect our heart, our cardiovascular system.
People get some stroke survivors get the hiccups after they've had the stroke.
Hmm?
As you know, I run a bunch of Facebook groups and I read hundreds of posts and thousands of comments. And there have been people reporting that they had hiccups for 3 months,
Wow.
2 weeks, or off and
Mm-hmm.
on for hours and hours at a time. Anyway, just
That's interesting to know.
yeah,
And
I
why?
don't quite know why, but
Yes.
people will report that.
And I saw an atypical diagnosis of GERD, the symptoms. People have GERD. All right. Yeah. So again, I think if you're living in a community, please get social support. I love this article that Holly posted from her gynecologist about women in stroke. Check your hormone levels, check your vitamin levels, vitamin B12, magnesium, and potassium as you age. All right. When you go for your annual blood work, check those vitamin levels, B12, magnesium, and potassium. All right. Make sure your minerals, you're getting your natural minerals through your diet. All right. Is there anything else y'all wanted to talk about?
Wait, is there a certain level that should be all these vitamins?
It depends on other medications that you take. So you need to look at the big picture. It depends on how your kidney function is. So look at the whole picture. So check your medications list, because sometimes your medicines deplete, because if you take a diuretic for your blood pressure that makes you urinate a lot, it can deplete your system. So check your medications. But when it was looking for gender specific risk factors, they say the three most important is B12, magnesium, and potassium. You know, potassium is important for cellular function and nerve conductions and things like that. Sodium and potassium.
Magnesium helps with absorbing a lot of things and
Yes.
also in a lot of body chemical
Right.
functioning. If I was going to add a fourth one, I think I'm not a doctor, I'd add vitamin D.
Yes, because D along with C in the absorption and how B12 works, all of that is important. And the reason why your opinion that's so important, you're not exercising and moving your muscles, you're not putting tension on the bone, and then your bone becomes porous. So you may need to add supplements to help with the density of the bone if you're not exercising, because every time you pull a muscle on your bone, it creates tension and the bone at that point gets stronger. That's why I tell people flexibility is so important. So if you have to move your muscle, you just don't snap the bone. The muscle lengthens, but still applies tension through the bone at the tendinous joint, where the tendon where it attaches to the bone. Let's see. I think we've touched on everything. The AFib. Oh, another important thing, ladies, and this is because of the stress. 7 to 8 hours worth of sleep, and deep sleep, good sleep, not waking up through the night in light sleep, good sleep. Like when you wake up in the morning, you're refreshed. Okay, that came up. That came up. And
And
of
what if you cannot sleep?
Okay, so here's another, see, this is why exercise is so important. When you took all the people who engaged in high intensity exercise, whether they were stroke or non-stroke, post-stroke, they all slept better. What was the factor? It was the high intensity exercise. Your body is fatigued, and during this deep sleep time, your muscle goes through healing. It rebuilds itself. So if you're not exercising at a high intensity during the day, which releases all of those good hormones for relaxation in your body, which helps you sleep, also happy hormones, the endorphins, you can't, it doesn't, that's a marker of good sleep, high intensity exercise. And then I just, we can close out because I'm leaving to go back to the pool to teach a class, but I wanted to share one last thing with you. The American Heart Association has something called the Life Essential 8.
Start video.
So the thing is not to smoke,
There you go.
maintain a healthy weight, stay physically active, eat a healthy diet, get enough sleep, and you need to maintain the top 3 non-communicable diseases. Do y'all know what the top 3 non-communicable diseases? I've already mentioned them today. What are they? High blood pressure, your blood glucose, and cholesterol. American Heart Association, Life's Essential 8. Don't smoke, maintain a healthy weight, stay physically active, eat a healthy diet, get enough sleep, and maintain your blood glucose, maintain your blood pressure, and your cholesterol levels. And I think I'll close out on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so someone asked, because I do have to step off, and I want to thank everybody for attending. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, Ralph. Miss Lorraine, Ralph has all of my information and he will send it out. When he sends out, he says it's in the link below, but you can reach out to me. I will try my best to answer your questions or get you in touch with someone in your area.
I have one quick question.
Uh-huh.
Is water exercise good for people who've had a lot of stroke issues?
Yes. You know why? Because it gets rid of gravity. And so people who cannot walk on land, they can walk in the pool. And guess where I'm getting ready to go? I'm getting ready to go to, I think it's the only pool in Charleston that has a ramped access so that you can hold onto the bar and walk down into the pool. It has a stair access and it has a chair access. And that's where I'm going tonight to teach water aerobics.
That's
It's
wonderful.
the best therapy
Okay.
out there, Linda, as far as I'm concerned. I've taken 8 people to do pool therapy and I've watched it translate to the land. And you can't get hurt unless you hit the side of the pool.
Exactly. And everybody floats. Everybody floats.
What about the ocean? Well, for me, it would be the Pacific.
Well,
But I spent
I'm
most
in,
of my life in Hawaii, so ocean is like second nature.
so I'm in
Different.
Charleston and I've had people whose goals were to run in the beach, but if I had to have my own private practice, I would get a sandbox and have them walk in a sandbox that has a bottom that's tilted and then have jet sprays in there so that they can learn how to walk with the tide and the water moving out. Again, remember what we said, it has to be task specific. So if you want to walk at the beach, you got to train to walk at the beach. But every PT practice that I went to in Charleston, outpatient, none of them had a sandbox. And we're in Charleston. Everybody wants to go to the beach.
Of course.
Okay.
The
Thank you
waves are a
so
lot
much.
bigger on the Pacific, and I also live in South Carolina, and I walked in the sand. I also walked in the shallows because they're real uneven, and the waves hitting you. I used first 15, 20 feet of the ocean for balance training after my stroke. And again, if you fall over and you're in water up to your knees, you're not going to get hurt. Plus, you never know what's going to happen to you in terms of the unevenness of the sand and the waves hitting you. Anyway, thank you, Genevieve, and for everybody out there.
Thank you,
I'll put
Genevieve.
all,
Thank you. Aloha. Aloha. Thank
I'll
you.
put all of her contact information in the description underneath the video.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ralph.